He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast View, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi, and Mississippi for that matter, a better place to live, work, and play. If you've been listening to my show on a regular basis, you know that one of the issues that I'm really interested in talking about is the sad issue of human trafficking, and specifically sex trafficking. I've discussed it over the years with state officials in my various jobs that I had prior to this gig. I was always interested in why there wasn't more of a conversation about it, why there wasn't more discussed in the community about this. When you think about the number of people, it's mostly men, women, and children who are trapped. It's hard to get your head around. So I've been really focused on the compelling numbers for a number of years, and I want to maybe create some more outrage. I certainly want to bring more focus to this conversation. But what I've learned is, and we'll be talking more about that this morning, is that it's really a hard issue to talk about. It's hard because it's sex trafficking. There's nothing good about that. But then when you look at it from the point of view of a victim, a child or a woman who's been trapped in that environment, it's emotional and it's difficult. It's just a very difficult thing to think about. Tim Tebow said recently, it's horrific and dark. He's actually now focused on this as one of his issues. There are just simply too many people who are trapped and held against their will. Ashton Kutcher, you may know that he's been focused on this for a number of years. He said in his 2017 testimony before Congress that everyone has a right to pursue happiness, and that too many people are having their happiness taken away from them. He's been focused on this. I'm actually going to ask Kyle to put a link to Ashton's testimony with this video, because it's not only educational, it's also sad, which again is one of the reasons why this is a tough conversation to have. You may remember that in my preparation for the Coast View session I had with singer-songwriter Steve Azar, I ran across a very special song that he wrote called "The Sky Is Falling," Patty Joe's Prayer. We're going to be playing a segment of that song in the second half of this show. But Steve talked about writing that song for a fundraiser. And in preparation for the song, he reached out to a guy named Steve Webster from South Portland, Maine. Steve Webster has a distinguished career in law enforcement and is actually writing a book about human trafficking, an area of specialty for him for the last 4 or 5 years of his career. I've invited Steve Webster to join me today here on Coast View to continue the conversation. And I look forward to hearing from him. Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Morning, Ricky. Hey, I really appreciate you having me.
It's great to have you. So you're in your car somewhere in the hills of Maine. Tell me where you are.
I am in the western hills of Maine, sitting in my vehicle where I have some level of reception with my one and only favorite dog, Maisie, sitting right next to me.
Well, that's good. Listen, I really appreciate
the lengths I will go for my brother Steve Azar are just endless.
Well, Steve wanted me to ask you a really important question. He sent me a text this morning and said he asked me to ask you if you had ever beaten him in bowling.
Yeah, you remember all those nice things I just said about him?
Yeah,
all that.
Well, how do you know, Steve? Tell me about that.
Oh, it had to be over 15 years ago. I was the president of a large police organization. We were going to have a banquet. And we had a mutual friend at the time. I mean, I didn't know Steve Azar. And I said, Harry, do you know anybody that will come up and perform? He said, I got this guy, Steve Azar. And I remember the song, Waiting on Joe. Great song. And I said, what's it going to cost? And you know what he said? Going to do it for nothing. Just get him up. He'll just pay for his airfare and he'll come. I'm like, wow. So he came up, and we knew it was going to be a good night when we picked him up, brought him to the hotel, and said, we'll come back and get you in a few hours when you're supposed to perform. And he said, what? No, we're going with you. It was him and his partner, Jason. Well, that was the beginning of a very long night. There may have been some bowling involved, but hit it off. He may be a singer, songwriter, entrepreneur, whatever he is, but to me, he's just a great guy. He has a heart of gold. He'll do anything for you. He has compassion. He's honest. He's the type of guy that you just want to be friends with. And we've just stayed in touch for all these years, and I love the guy.
It's cool that Jason was with him. You know, I mentioned to Steve in my extended Coach View session with him that in the documentary they did, Something in the Water, about that whole process of that album that he did with B.B. King's band behind him then. And you get to know Jason better through that documentary, and he referred to him as the ultimate sidekick. But you can tell that they're just a great duo when they're together, and you had an opportunity to get to spend time with the two of them together, huh?
We had one or two laughs that night. I will say that. Yes.
Yeah. That's really awesome. He's a special guy, but again, The Sky Is Falling came about as a result of this woman in one of the Dakotas.
South Dakota.
South Dakota. Yeah.
Yep.
Buying, at a fundraiser for $25,000 this song, and it was the ability, the right to have this song written, whatever song you wanted. I was amazed that Steve did that, and when I studied his philanthropy, he's literally been all over the country. In fact, recently just got back from Denver doing one. But he just does philanthropy. He just offers his talent and heart to nonprofits across the country, and it's amazing. And the network that he's developed through doing that is really incredible. But he wrote, yeah.
Go ahead. It can't get any better than that, Ricky. He's met people like me.
Well, look, man, you've got a lot to share, and Steve said that the time he spent with you talking about human trafficking was incredibly important to him as it relates to this song. And I think this song, as more people understand it and hear it, not only is it a great song, the song in itself just a really good song, but the video that accompanies the song, we'll talk more about it in the second half when we get together. Let's talk a little bit about you for a minute. You had a long career in law enforcement. Tell me quickly about that.
I did. I got hired in 1987. I was just a kid. I spent about 10 years or so as a patrol officer, and then I was lucky enough to become a detective. I was a detective for a few years, and then I did drug work. If you can imagine, I mean, I'm old and, kind of like you now. You know what I'm saying? I'm falling apart. Back then, I had hair, so I had long hair and hearing. Did drug work for a while, almost 6 years, I think. And the last 10 years of my career, I was lucky enough to be the supervisor of the Detective Bureau in little old South Portland, Maine, with 55 police officers and a population of about 25,000. And I loved it. I just worked with great people. And the way I got into the world, if you will, of the life of sex trafficking, it wasn't by choice. It wasn't by choice at all. I was sort of thrown into it, and I just did the best I could.
Well, you not only did the best you could, you became sort of an expert on the subject. I might add, by the way, that South Portland, Maine, while it only has 25,000 residents, during the tourist months, it swells to more than 100,000. So it's a pretty popular destination resort, huh?
It does, yeah. It swells during the summer months because it's it's right on the coast, and it's a beautiful, beautiful community. And who wouldn't want to come? I mean, really?
Yeah, it's a special place for sure. So let's talk a little bit. So what was the foray that you had into human trafficking, and what is it that made it become sort of a specialty for you?
I got a call one day from a veteran prosecutor, and you have to remember that at this point in my career, I'd already been a cop for 25 years. I was sort of burnt out, probably should have retired, but I had nowhere else to go. And she asked me to go speak with some parents outside the city of Portland. And I thought it was odd that she didn't tell me what I was going to talk to them about. And with this prosecutor, I didn't ask. I just said, okay, I'll take care of it. So I was in a training class that day, and I drove up and met with these folks later that evening. And to make a long story very short, my whole world changed when I walked out of their house, because I have two daughters, and I spent a half hour with very nice people. And I don't take this the wrong way, Ricky, but it could have been you. It literally could have been you I was sitting there talking to. These people were not poor. They were normal, average, everyday, hardworking. And the husband, who has since passed, came around the corner after about 5 minutes, and he showed me a picture on his phone. And that's all he could get out was, "This is my daughter." And I'm like, wow. She was a beautiful young woman, early 20s. But let's just say she was scantily clad in this picture. And it was on a website that was well-known sex trafficking. And I don't shut up. I've always got something to say. I was speechless. And the only thing I could say to those folks when I walked out was, "I will find your daughter." That was it. And I did. She got arrested because there were warrants for her. It's a long story, but I used the criminal justice system to my advantage that time to get this woman help. And from that day forward, people think that you know something. So what do? They keep calling you. And the next thing I knew, man, I was chasing pimps and sex trafficking victims all over Maine and other parts of New England. So
Steve, this is Steve Webster, who is from South Portland, Maine, and we're having a conversation about human trafficking and specifically sex trafficking. We're coming to the end of this segment together, but one of the things that people say or think is that this is something that happens in a faraway land. This whole notion of human trafficking, they think about it being somewhere else. But in fact, it's in everyone's backyard, isn't it?
If I can have my thoughts and ideas and perceptions change after being a police officer for 25 years, then others can as well. That is such an overwhelming thought to people, but they don't realize it's in every, and I mean every, small city and town across America, because sex sells, and it's a business. It is clearly a business that is driven by greed, and they want money.
Let's do this. We're going to continue the conversation when we come back on the other side. This is Steve Webster, and look forward to continuing the conversation after this break.
What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fl.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors. Here the show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to frequently touch surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We're having a conversation with Steve Webster from South Portland, Maine. He's actually a friend of singer-songwriter and Mississippian Steve Azar. And he's a guy who's helped Steve Azar understand sort of how bad human trafficking is, what it is, who's involved in it, to inspire Steve and the song that he wrote, A Sky Is Falling. We're going to play a segment of that in just a second. But before we do, give me another example. It sounds like you were really touched and you did find the young woman that you were talking about. What made you go on a mission? And give me another example.
Well, I didn't set out to go on a mission. I think it was sort of thrown in my lap because when I investigated that first case and I realized just how few people in law enforcement were actually investigating these cases. And I could literally, Maine is a fairly large area geographically, and I could count on one hand how many people in law enforcement were looking into them. So it was sort of by default. And there were so many, I literally couldn't keep up because the phone was ringing every day from victims and advocates. And hey, can you help this woman? We have this pimp, we think. I'm like, wow. You have 3 or 4 people in the greater Portland area looking into them, it's very, very stressful.
And, the number of children that are caught up in this. Tell me about a case where a child was involved.
We had some that were fairly young. When I say fairly young, early teens. But I will say this, to Maine's credit, even the other victims, because there is somewhat of a network, even the other victims, they would call me. They would call me and say, hey, we heard there's a young girl selling herself or being forced to sell herself, because even they didn't put up with that. But Maine is a fairly rural state. Just imagine how bad it is in a larger state or a larger city. Mississippi has some pretty big cities. It's happening. It is happening. And we have to remember that none of these people are throwaway folks.
They're not. They're all, as Ashton Kutcher says, they should have the ability to pursue happiness. And hey, why don't we do this? Let's play the segment from A Sky Is Falling, and then we'll discuss it on the other side. Huh?
The sky is falling. Can't you hear me calling out for help? 'Cause I can't save myself. Am I forsaken? 'Cause what's been taken from me was only mine to lose in my own time. Oh, innocent, where you went? Stolen of my youth, as my body wears the proof. Oh, what's the use? Hey, the sky is falling.
So Steve, when I watched this video, when in the video the young woman depicted in the video says, "I want to go home," I literally get a chill all over my body. I mean, I don't. Does it touch you that way?
It does. It does. I will never. Some things in our lives we just don't forget, and I still remember specifically the day that Steve Azar called me. I was pulling into the backyard of the police department. I parked my car, and we ended up chatting for about 30 minutes because he told me the story of, what happened out in South Dakota. And he said, I have to write a song. Like, well, good luck, buddy. So he sort of picked my brain, and that was the main theme of what I was trying to tell him. I said, Steve, at the end of the day, these victims just want to go home. If there is a safe place for them that they can call home, that's where they want. Had to be 4 or 5 months later. He came to New England to do a gig. We're driving from Worcester, Massachusetts back to Maine. And he said, hey, did I ever play that song for you? I'm like, what song? And he had it on his phone. It was just him and his guitar. Ricky, I almost went off the road. I'm like, oh, wow. I said, oh, you've got it. And the rest is history. You know, we had who I thought was a college student, but I know it was a high school student, made the video, did an incredible job, all filmed in and around the greater Portland area. And I mean, none of this would have happened without the generosity of Pat Lloyd out in South Dakota, an amazing woman that nobody knows that has contributed more to the fight against human trafficking than most people that I know. It's the silent heroes that have to be counted.
Yeah, I can't agree more. In fact, I hope to have her on my show at some point in the future and talk more about what her drive is, and you can be inspired by that. But one of the things that you see in the video, and we'll describe for our radio audience, is the fact that you have this young woman, and of course you have her depicted as a child at some point, and you sense this vulnerability, and that she owns her own body, the sanctity of her own body, and that is being taken away from her. And man, it just it just makes you want to just go protect them. Is that what goes through your mind when you see that?
It does. And I don't think a lot of people understand that a large percentage of sex trafficking victims were abused, sexually abused, verbally, physically, as children. And if they don't get the help they need early, then their whole thought process about sexuality is skewed, because when they were younger, that's how they got something. I mean, it sounds terrible, but imagine the trauma. It's the trauma that they have. I still talk to several of the trafficking victims who I now consider to be survivors, and there is a difference. It's almost like you cross that bridge into survivorship, and they're going to have problems forever. It's that simple. But when you consider one was actually living in a parking garage, sleeping under cardboard, and she now has her own apartment, working full time at a hospital, she's drug free, she owns herself again. If everything I did was wrong, that one thing was right. That's the way I look at it. We can't save everybody, but everybody can save one person.
Yeah, it's so important. It's not always about international sex trafficking. Oftentimes, as we've talked about on this show with a number of people that I've had on the show, it can be as simple as one person who is being abused by a family member, and usually it's the people who are closest to them that are sort of grabbing them and bringing them into a sex trafficking scenario. And some of what's been talked about, where 15, 20 sex acts in a day, and just, I mean, imagine what that does to someone's soul and their psyche, having to deal with that day after day after day. I mean, you've seen it all, haven't you?
Unfortunately, I saw too much. And one thing that I did do is, and this book that I'm working on, it isn't about me. I tried to give voice to the victims. So several of them actually, I said, hey, I sort of wrote about you. Would you like to write about you as well? And a few of them actually took me up on it. And I think that will be the most intriguing part of it. Because a lot of them, they will say flat out, they didn't trust me because I was a guy. They just thought I was another John, someone who was going to take advantage of them. That trust has to be built up, and one wrong move, you lose that relationship. And getting themselves back is the most important thing that they can do. And I told them all the same thing. They say, oh, you saved me. I never saved anybody. What I tried to do was give them the opportunity to save themselves.
Yeah. So what's your advice to someone who knows someone who's caught up in that situation, or if a family member is caught up in it, or maybe they themselves is caught up in it? Tell me what your advice is.
Find someone that they trust. tell your story. You can't make somebody go to the police. You can't make somebody testify for the most part. But if they suspect that somebody is being trafficked or even, abused by a spouse, it doesn't matter. There's so many bad things happen out there. Tell somebody that they trust and then go from there. Then they may get the confidence, because once they tell their story, they're almost empowered a little bit, like, hey, I am somebody. And then go forward.
Steve, I had Stacey Riley on not too long ago. She's from the Gulf Coast Center for Nonviolence, and she said one of the most important things they have is trust.
Yes.
I mean, they know that when someone calls them, they understand the importance of this, because a woman who's caught up in this situation, the people around her can be violent, and it's a very difficult situation. Listen, we're at the end of our time together, but let me say this to people who are listening. If you know someone who's caught up in this, do a search about the Gulf Coast Center for Nonviolence in coastal Mississippi. They're doing incredible work, and they can help you. They're not only about counseling, but they're also about advocacy. They have a great relationship with law enforcement. They can help you. So please reach out to the Gulf Coast Center for Nonviolence if you know anyone or if you yourself needs help. And Steve, I really appreciate you joining me today. You've been terrific, man. And I thank Steve Azar for introducing us.
Well, I appreciate you taking this on, Ricky. I really do. And don't stop, brother. Don't stop.
I'm not going to. I will continue to focus on it. But this has been Steve Webster from South Portland, Maine. Well, actually, he's in his car, I guess on vacation up in the boonies somewhere. But it's been a pleasure to talk to you, buddy. Take care.
All right, you too. See you, man.
Okay, bye-bye.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast View on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to supertalkmsgulfcoast.com.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We are with the fabulous Norbert Putnam, as he played on so many hit records, you can't count them, and produced for some of the biggest acts ever. Norbert, Elvis.
And I want to tell you about Presley. He had two different voices. He would sit and talk to me in a very calm, low voice. And we were at Stack's one night, and we were having lunch. We always had lunch at midnight because he was nocturnal. We sat there and we have our sandwiches, and at 1 o'clock, he looked up. He said, "Hey, Put, come on, it's time for me to go beat Elvis." And he stood up, and a much deeper voice, he put on his macho voice. "Hey, fellas, it's 1 o'clock. Let's get cracking, okay?"
In a Mississippi Minute.
Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, Amazon Alexa, and now on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We are school teachers,
We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Everyone knows the only thing better than pizza is free pizza, and right now, buy a $10 gift certificate to CiCi's Pizza for only $5. It's like buying a pizza and getting a pizza for free. Go to our station's website or Facebook. Look for the Half Off Deals logo to purchase this amazing deal right now.
We give HPV vaccine to children at 11 or 12 years of age. I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and I've given the vaccine to all of them.
Get out of the house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90, Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen. Okay. Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices. He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making this place such a great place to live, work, and play. And look, here's the deal. I got a special treat for you today. I learned about our next guest when my friend Farrell Allman, who I grew up with, posted about him, and then I went into his, this man's Facebook page and started to study what he was up to. He's an 80-year-old retired Navy veteran, and his name is Stanley Stark, or Stan Stark, as he's known by, and he is kayaking the Mississippi River from the headwaters all the way to the opening. And boy, does he have a story to tell. His journey started on July the 15th, and I personally can't wait to get an update. Stan, how are you doing?
Doing just great. We started, as you said, on the 15th of July, and we've been paddling now for some, 23 days, I believe, at this point. We've traveled about close to 350 miles so far. I say we because I had the good fortune of meeting up with another Navy vet, Chief Clayton Corbin and his wife Bill, along with one of their friends, Brian Hoover, and the husband and wife team are paddling in a double kayak, and Brian is paddling a sea kayak by himself. We're doing great, and things are going good.
So is everything on schedule?
Everything is on schedule. Like I say, we started out at the headwaters, and the first 53 miles of the trip it weeds out the the ones that won't make it to the Gulf Coast. I guarantee you that. It was really rough, beautiful flora, fauna that you just have to knock you out, just beautiful. And we got to Bemidji, and the upper part of the river there are places on the Mississippi River where, believe it or not, it's about 3 feet wide, just enough to paddle a kayak through. The emergent growth each year kind of fills in the wetlands, and you just have to work your way through it. Beaver dams, one portage that was really a tough one. And as you know, I'm going for a world record, and Guinness is pretty rigid as to the requirements to arrive to win this award, if you will. And one of the issues is you have to start and end with the same boat, the same kayak, or whatever you're paddling. And, I have a fiberglass kayak, and it's the ideal boat when you get out on the Mississippi River. It took a beating coming down, so that's one of the things we're going to do where we're stopped here now is to repair my boat.
Well, you're going to be 81 years old on August the 16th. And man, I mean, I'm not kidding when I say this. You're my new hero. I've always worked hard to stay healthy, and I run and bike and work out with weights, and done that for 30, 40 years, because the things that I'm involved with, offshore fishing, hunting, and the things that I enjoy doing with my sons, I got to be in shape to do it. But you set the new bar for me. I want to be able to do what you're doing now when I get your age. I mean, it's just, how many people have said that to you?
But a few, actually, to be honest with you. I lead a pretty active life, and do a lot of sea kayak. I've been kayaking for about over 20 years now. Go out to the barrier islands frequently, once or twice with your friend Farrell there. And Dave Vinson, he's one of my kayaking friends, although he hasn't done much lately. But I keep active, and I think that's what keeps you going, I really do. And so I don't know that I had mentioned that, I also participate in local and regional kayak races. Yeah, of course, this year is a little bit troublesome with COVID-19, but normally we do as many as 10 or 12 races a year, locally and regionally. One of the big ones we do is the Chattajack, the famous Chattajack up on the Tennessee River. It starts in downtown Chattanooga. And unfortunately, it got canceled too. That's a biggie.
So where are you now?
We are in Brainerd, Minnesota. And we're 340 miles into the trip. I say we because my good friends Dylan, Clayton, and Brian are paddling along with me, and we'll be in provisioning and find a few things we need out of here tomorrow. Yeah, and we got a long ways to go. We paddling on down. I guess it'll probably be a week or so before we get to Minneapolis, St. Paul. I would think at least, maybe more than that, probably more than that. I had planned the trip for 90 days, and I hope we get down to the Gulf Coast by mid-October if all goes well.
Well, that's terrific. By the way, when I was working for the Sun Herald, our sister paper was in St. Paul, Minnesota. So I actually spent a month up there. That's a beautiful part of the country. I mean, you're going through some just gorgeous parts of the country, aren't you?
We are. I've seen some beautiful country. The flora of the fauna, like I was saying before, is just extraordinary. We see probably during our 350-mile paddle, we've seen hundreds of eagles, bald eagles, and something new to me, apparently, in Minnesota is the white swan. And I thought that would be maybe somebody that kind of planted up there, but we've seen 3 or 4 of them, and otter, and just deer along the riverway. It's really been great. It's really been a beautiful trip. And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say we're coming to the end of the segment, but we'll have a chance for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll come back on the other side. But is it harder than you imagined?
Well, I've done a lot of research, and websites, people that make the trip. There are probably 25 or so that start out, maybe 25 to 30 at the most, and probably only half a dozen or so make it. What we call paddlers. Yeah, Ricky, we have to negotiate 29 locks and dams, 17 portages. And unfortunately for me, it says that if I'm going to get the this or whatever you want to call it, I have to do all the portages on the system. Now that's a task, I'll tell you, because I've already done 4, and I got a 53-pound kayak and about 120 pounds of gear. And I have to get that sucker out of the water and get it up on the road and go around the dam. Some of the portages are as much as 1,000 yards, So
wow.
yeah, it's a task.
Yeah.
It isn't. It's not for the faint of heart. I can tell you that.
Well, it would be hard for a 20-something-year-old guy, much less an 80, soon to be 81-year-old man. What an incredible inspiration. I want to tell people that. Thank you for hanging in there with us. The connection kind of comes and goes. I think we can understand most of what you're saying, and we were lucky to get you at this moment. You happen to be where you are, and you'll be back in your kayak. I guess you're going today. Will you be back in your kayak today?
We'll be back tomorrow on the water. I did have one last thing, if there's time for it, Ricky.
Yeah, we're going to actually come back on the other. We're going to come back on the other side after the break.
Very good.
We've got plenty of time because I actually want to talk to you about the river angels that you've come in contact with. But I want to do that. I want to do that in the next segment.
Yeah. Also, I want to talk about Star Displace.
Yeah.
Fundraiser I'm doing as well, if we can.
Okay, so let's do this. This is the 80-year-old retired Navy veteran Stan Stark from coastal Mississippi, who is in the process of I would say, you're going to achieve it. God willing, you're going to achieve it. A Guinness Book of World Record, a kayak down the Mississippi River from the headwaters all the way down to the Gulf Coast, and hopes to have it accomplished in 90 days. And one of the things that he talks about are the locks and dams and having to pick up that heavy boat and all your backpack and all of that, and sometimes have to walk as far as 1,000 yards. That's incredible to me. But you're my hero, and we're going to come back after this break and talk more about the river angels that you come in contact with.
Thank you, Ricky.
Subscribe for free to the Coast View podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter. Has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard, and, all this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute.
Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
There's a place to share gossip about the office party fun, and a place to share the story you tell everyone. There's a place to share a laugh about when things went wrong, and a place to share the video of you dancing to your song. There's a place to share spare change, lunch, and your time. But we could all be better at sharing how we're feeling inside. 76% of employees have struggled with at least one issue that affected their mental health. When you share, you're not alone.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi, and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
This is House Call for Health. There may be no greater medical mystery and no greater tragedy than sudden infant death syndrome. It used to be known as crib death. For no apparent reason, a presumably healthy sleeping baby dies. Medical experts don't have clear-cut answers to what causes sudden infant death, or SIDS, but now they have 2 risk factors: smoking and drinking during pregnancy, beyond the first 3 months. A new study finds that babies whose mothers drank alcohol and smoked tobacco after the first trimester are at far greater risk of SIDS, 12 times greater. Previous studies showed a risk of smoking and drinking individually. This study says doing both drastically increases the danger. The research is sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, which is calling for greater publicity about the danger and improved screening at the very beginning of a pregnancy. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to frequently touch surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have soon-to-be 81-year-old Navy veteran Stan Stark, coast of Mississippi, who's on his way down the Mississippi River from the headwaters to the Gulf Coast in a fiberglass kayak, and he's got a couple friends with him, and they're making their way down. He's in Minnesota now, and one of the things that he talks about is if he achieves this goal, he will be the oldest man to ever done it, and will have a Guinness Book of World Record. What an amazing thing! One of the things I saw, and I mentioned this before we went to break, is that you're meeting so many interesting people coming down the river. You know, you referred to some of them as river angels. Tell me about the people you're coming in contact with.
Yeah, I sure will, Ricky. A lot of folks that come down the river, they kind of think they're in a race. You know, they anxious to get to the Gulf or a segment of the river that they're doing. But what he found out about, and I had researched, there's a loose-knit group of people, and they call themselves the River Angels. Then live along the river or very close proximity to the river, and they reach out to the through paddlers that we call ourselves through paddlers that do the whole source to sea event. They invite you into their home, and they will give you a place to sleep, and they're just remarkable people, I'm telling you. And we've had at least 3 or 4 times met up with these people and had the opportunity to do this. The beauty of it is, first of all, Minnesota has a winter that lasts about 8 months, and I think they're anxious to see people like us anyway. But we learn so much about Minnesota. It's part of the country. It's so beautiful. And I got to tell you, their motto is Minnesota nice. Mississippi is the hospitality state. These guys are right on your tail. They're as good as we are in Mississippi to helping people out. They really are. And
that's
sometimes they'll. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that's how I remember them. I remember them as being just incredibly pleasant people to be around. And you talk about their cause is sort of helping the people who come down the river, but you have a cause that you're working on as well. Tell us about that.
I do indeed, Ricky. It's called Sargent's Place. It's located way out on the Olympic Peninsula in the state of Washington in a little town called Forks. And I had some ties to that because my dad was sent out there during World War II. Talking to somebody that remembers World War II. And I was a kid. But anyway, it's a homeless veteran shelter, and they just at this time are doing a fundraiser for a new addition to the facility there. It's small, but they do a lot. They go out into the rainforest, and a lot of the homeless they want to be off the grid and stay there, but it's not a large facility, but it's a very important one. They help, the vets to come back, PTSD victims and all of that. And I'm very passionate about it. So I'm doing all I can to raise as much money as I can for the organization.
Well, good for you. It's good to see, and I'm not surprised to see it, that someone with your tenacity and your ability in the process of getting working to achieve a Guinness Book of World Record as the oldest man ever to go from the headwaters to the Gulf on the Mississippi River, that you would also find a cause to support. And it sounds like that one is near and dear to your heart. And what we'll do, we'll put a link to it with the video when we post the video, so that people can learn more about your cause and understand more about it. And what I want to say to people is that I appreciate you hanging in with us, as the connection has been poor, but we've been able to understand you, and the inspiration that you provide for us is so important. And I can't, we had to get you when we could get you, which is now, and we look forward to maybe getting with you again in, say, 3 or 4 weeks to see where you are and see how you're making progress, so that our listeners and the people who follow us on the SuperTalk Mississippi page and also the SuperTalk Gulf Coast page can stay in touch with what's happening with you. So so you leave here today, and tomorrow, and where do you head next?
Well, we'll continue on down the river. I'm not sure what the next town is. It's really kind of, in a way, you can tell this upper end of the Mississippi River, and you can tell for 120 miles and not see a soul. You see, cottages along the river, which most seem not, just not all of them seem to be unoccupied. But it's like it was years ago. It's pristine still, and that's beautiful. Yeah, it really is something. I did have one more thought to mention, if I could.
Please do. Yes.
People ask me, why are you doing this? Well, I'm doing it to probably test myself to some degree, shall we say, in advanced stage. But I'm also trying to inspire people that are older, in their 50s, 60s, 70s, get off the couch and get out there and smell the roses. I mean, really out and about, even in our hometown along the coast there. Surprised me, I've lived in Mississippi now well over 40 years. A lot of people along the coastal cities that haven't even been out to Cat Island or Horn Island or something. I think these people should realize what they can do, even when they get my age. Just
you're a living testament, or might I say, a rowing testament to what it means to grow older and stay active. That staying active is so key to our survival. So, especially in this COVID situation, we're learning that the healthy older people are doing pretty well. If you've got pre-existing conditions, it's a great time, as you point out, to get out and move and take care of yourself and take in this beautiful place we call coastal Mississippi. Stan, we're at the end of our time together, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to join us. And we'll connect with you again in about 3 or 4 weeks. And man, God bless you.
Thank you very much, Ricky. And I'm honored to be on your show, and look forward to maybe another episode if we can.
We definitely will. We definitely will. Okay, so have a great day, and thank you very much.
The same to you, very, very much.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.